Hi, Beryl and Yaya. Can you hear me? Just want to make sure that my microphone is working. Loud and clear. Thanks, Yaya. I hope that my rendition of Reb Noson's halacha is going to be loud and clear and ring from the rooftops, and especially deep down in our hearts. Okay, welcome, David and family. If you have not listened to the first two sessions of this series, I would recommend that you do so. It doesn't preclude you from learning with us tonight, not at all, because we're going to do a quick review. But if you listen to the first two sessions, you will learn the Torah on which this halacha is based. I don't know if you have a background in Likutey Maharan or Likutey Halachos, but if you don't, you may need to know that Rebbe Noson, Rebbe Nachman's prime disciple, wrote his halachos based on the Torahs of Rebbe Nachman, the lessons of Rebbe Nachman. So every halacha shows us how to deeply connect to the mitzvos in halacha, excuse me, based on the lessons from Rebbe Nachman. So again, we're going to start in a minute. But if you have time during the next week to listen to the first two sessions, it will greatly enhance your understanding of the material. But welcome. You're welcome. I don't know if it's David or family or David and family. It's kind of interesting giving a share online this way because you never know really who's sitting around and listening or not listening. Kind of interesting. Okay, let's get started. Well, Hashem, thank you, Hashem, for giving me another opportunity. Oh, wow, David, Devorah, and Benjamin, welcome all of you. Yashikov, thank you for joining me. I'd like to start by thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving me another opportunity to learn with you, to share Rebbe Nachman's wisdom and lessons and Reb Noson's wisdom and lessons. It's a tremendous achus, tremendous honor, more than an honor. It enhances my learning and my connection. So I'm greatly appreciative of the opportunity and grateful to Kadosh Baruch Hu. And of course to Yossi Katz and Breslov Research Institute for making it possible on my level. So we're going to start right away tonight. We have a lot to cover between tonight and next week, because tonight is the third night of the 4-part series. So we're going to dive right in. And Reb Noson always starts out his halacha with a reference to the Torah upon which it's based and a quick review. Of course, based on the two sessions previously, a familiarity of that you will see borne out in the review that we're going to do now. If you didn't hear the first part, that's quite all right. You'll still get a lot from the review, and you'll be able to gain very greatly from the halacha. Yom Tov, asur kol hamalachos chutz ochel nefesh. On Yom Tov, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah, etc. All malacha, all work, is prohibited, except for those types of activities that we need to prepare food. Now, when we define work, since we're talking here on the internet and it's such a broad audience, there may be some who may not be familiar with what I mean and what halacha means when we define work. Welcome, Pamela. Welcome back. When we talk about work, halachically, Yiddishkeit speaking, we're not talking about manual labor. It's important to make that distinction, especially in light of the halacha we're going to learn tonight. What we're talking about is one of the 39 categories of activities that the Torah prohibits us to perform on Shabbos or Yom Tov. And they may not be strenuous, but they're defined by the Torah as work. And as a result of that, we're prohibited from engaging in those kinds of activities on Shabbos or Yom Tov. In fact, a person could actually exert himself very greatly over a Shabbos, lifting heavy boxes or weights from one end of the room to the other all day long, and work up quite a sweat and have quite a workout, and not violate the Torah prohibition of actually doing work. He may tread upon the spirit of keeping Shabbos. He may violate the precept of not making your Shabbos like a weekday, but technically speaking, he has not performed any form of work. So that's just a fundamental component of the concept of malacha, of work on Shabbos. It's, again, the principles, the categories of activities, whether they're strenuous or not. The defining characteristic of those activities, by the way, is that they are productive. A totally destructive act with absolutely no productive intent is not actually forbidden on Shabbos or Yom Tov. One example of this could be tearing open a bag to get something out and destroying the bag in the process. So that's a destructive act, even though I want the food that's within the bag, let's say, for an example, but the act of tearing the bag is totally destructive. So that would be permissible on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Okay, this is not the goal of this shiur. So we're going to leave the discussion of malacha in that aspect alone for right now and continue. And there's no distinction between Yom Tov and Shabbos except for this concept that you're allowed to prepare food on Yom Tov. Kamosha Kasuv, as it says in the pasuk, that only that which is food for every soul, hu levado, it alone, ya'aseh lachem, you shall make for yourselves, or shall be made for yourselves. So that's the prohibition against doing all the malachos except for preparing food. Al pi ha'maimar, according to the Torah, the lesson of Rebbe Nachman, by the way, can you all see the pointer as I'm going along? Somebody can just let me know, that would be great, because I'm using the pointer so everyone can follow along if they want to. I'll continue for the meantime. Al pi ha'maimar, mi ha'isha chafetz chaim, that we learned, who is it who desires life? Who is the person, who is the man who desires life, etc. B'siman Lamed Gimel, in Torah Lamed Gimel 33, Ayin Sham Heitev, look over there, and I just have to switch the slides right away, unfortunately, so give me 1 second. And while I'm switching the slides, I'll tell you that unlike the way we went through the Torah, which was somewhat quick, what we're going to do now is going to be a little bit slower and a little bit more, with a little bit more explanation, because this is really the focus of what we wanted to get to. Okay, so it says, Reb Noson is going to give a quick review. I'm going to go through it quickly. There are two kinds of days. This is something we discussed. Yimei Tov v'Yimei Ra. Good days and bad days. Days where we are pleased with the way things are working out, and we're enjoying, we are succeeding, accomplishing, things are smooth. And then there are just hard days. There are days that are hard. We call them Yimei Ra, bad days. Kamosha Kosov, as it says in the pasuk, B'yom tova eye b'tov, or it's not a pasuk, but b'yom tova eye b'tov, u'b'yom ra re'eh. On a good day, it's good, and on a bad day, you have to see. You have to be ma'ayin. You have to look into it to see the good that lies within that day. That is that he has to look very, very well when he's experiencing a bad day. And by looking very carefully at that, during that bad day experience, you will see that you're also able to find Hashem. Because the whole world is filled with his honor. In other words, it's filled with his presence. And there's no place that's devoid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. And we said that there might be places that sensing Hashem is a little more challenging, because amongst various places of the world and groups of people, Hashem attenuates, he constricts his presence very greatly, making it a little more challenging, or maybe even greatly challenging, to find him, to connect to him. But nevertheless, he's there. That's the first thing. The first thing is that even when we have challenging days, we still know and are confident that we can find the Kedusha, the elokus, the godliness in those days. Even in all the language of the Goyim, even in the lowest levels, you're able to find, one is still able to find Hashem there. Because if Hashem's presence would not be in those places or with those people at all, then they would cease to exist, because nothing exists in this realm without a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So however slight that connection is, enough to sustain them, but it's still there. Kamosha Kozovitz, it says, Pasuk V'atam achayas kulam, you bring life, you sustain everything. Raksha chiyas hu b'tzimtzum gadol, except that this chiyas, this life that Hashem is instilling in these places or in these people, is greatly, greatly diminished. Only enough to keep the spark of life lit within them. But so now we said when we were learning last couple times that how does one identify these sparks no matter where they are? Let's say, okay, if you're at home and you have minyanim and shuls and you have a base medrash to go to and you're learning, you can feel the kedusha around you. Let's say you're on the road, you're traveling, you're somewhere in the middle of nowhere. It's hard to connect to kedusha sometimes in these places. How do we find Hashem in those places? Or even if we haven't gone anywhere, but we're just having a bad day, right here at home, our minds, our hearts are not connecting to the elokus, to the godliness in our life at that moment. It happens to me, I'm sure it happens to everybody. So what do we do at that time? So Rebbe Nachman pointed out that the way to turn on the light and get that godliness activated in our life, and to get the letters of the Torah, which personify Kaviyachol, Hashem's presence in this world, the way to get that moving is through working on conquering one's Yetzer Hara, evil inclination. So that can be to, for example, a person is feeling a certain sluggishness, and they don't have a desire to go to a minyan, let's say, and there's a minyan available. So then he says, well, I'm going to conquer my Yetzer Hara and go to the minyan. Or I don't feel like connected enough to make my brachos today. But he says, but it's really right to make your brachos. So I'm going to conquer that Yetzer Hara and I'm going to make my brachos today. Or a person says, I'm feeling negative and I want to have a bad thought about so-and-so or such and such. And I'm sure, like everybody else, that's a big challenge for me too, that we stay positive and that we think positive thoughts and not negatively about ourselves or about other people. So when we engage in this fighting of the Yetzer Hara, that's when we have the opportunity to bring Hashem back into the picture. That's what energizes, that's what activates this process. The tzaddik, and that person is called a tzaddik. A tzaddik is one who conquers his Yetzer Hara. And the pasuk says, "V'ameh kulam tzaddikim." Your nation they're all tzaddikim. So to whatever extent you can conquer your Yetzer Hara, at that moment, in that aspect, you are a tzaddik. And to that extent that you're able to conquer that Yetzer Hara, Hashem knows your challenge. To whatever extent you are able to conquer it, Hashem will respond in kind by moving that much closer to you, and exhibiting himself and inspiring you in your life. Tzaddik shekovas yitzro, and the tzaddik who conquers his yetzer, he's able to find himself even amongst the languages of the Goyim. Look over there very well. So through this, a person will merit the love of das. So what does this mean? We had discussed this. There are different levels. There's the Zer Anpin in Kabbalah, which starts with Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus, the 7 lower spheros. That's all of those spheros are related to our world, our realm, our existence. The 3 higher spheros, Keser, Chachma, and Bina, are the Mochin. We don't understand them. It's hard for us to relate. We cannot get anywhere near understanding Keser. That's Kaviyachal Hashem's presence. But even Chachma and Bina can be somewhat challenging for us to get near. But Rebbe Nachman teaches us that there's an ahava that exists on the lower level, in the Zer Anpin, in the lower spheros, and there's an ahava that exists in the upper spheros, in the mochin. And when a person conquers his Yetzer Hara, and again, I'm using the word energize or activates HaKadosh Baruch Hu in his life, even in the bad days, or maybe even especially in the bad days, then a person is zoche to this higher level ahava, the ahava that happens in das, like Chachma, Bina, and das. So this is a very, very high level of connection to Hashem. Because there are 2, so Noson's going to explain it here too. Because there are 2 types of love. One is the ahava that's in days, meaning we said that the concept of days is anything with a limit, anything with a definition. Everything in our world is defined. It's defined by time and space and matter. Everything has a beginning and an end and a form to it. That's our realm. That's the 7 lower spheros. We're going to refer to those as yamim, days. Why? Because a day has a beginning and an end. So that's the nomenclature we're going to utilize. We also said that the Torah is a concept of yamim because the Torah has words that are delineated one from the other. The Torah has letters, and each letter is delineated one from the other. The Torah has mitzvos, and each mitzvah is unique and separate apart from all the other mitzvahs of the Torah. Conceptually, the Torah is split into different concepts, different themes or messages that it's presenting to us. So we're going to refer to the Torah as yamim, as days, things that have a measure to them, as well as life itself. And there's an ahava in the 7 lower spheros called the yamim. And there's yet a higher level of ahava that exists beyond time and beyond matter or form or any constriction of reality. Hainu ahava shebedas shu ahava shahaya ben Yisrael la'avim shebashamayim beish hayu adayim b'koach b'daito k'biyachol. And this ahava was created before HaKadosh Baruch Hu even created Klal Yisrael. It's something that while we were still, if I can use the expression, but not really to mean it in a concrete way, only a figment in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mind that he wanted to create us. Even then, before he created us, we can't understand this. In fact, Reb Noson is going to say this right now. It's impossible to understand this level of love that exists in Das. But suffice it to say, for our purposes, that there's an Ava that we can relate to. And that's the love that, let's say, a parent has for a child or spouses have for each other. It's the love that we can relate to. But then there's a higher level of love that exists way beyond our realm of understanding in the Mochen, where Hashem, even before he created us, had an amazing, and the words I'm using are totally insufficient, so don't think that I'm picking my words specifically because they directly reflect what was really happening. They can't, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu had amazing love for us before he created us. Ayin Sham, look over there. The main thing to take away from this introduction is that there's a lower level love, which is pretty incredible, and yet there's even a higher level love. And by going through this process, during the hard days, we reach up and we can have access to that higher level love. Each person is able to taste this love, even now, bizman, when we're constricted by the reality of time, over midos, or the reality of matter, anything, again, that's constricted by physicality or a measurement. And so then we said, when a person connects his heart to his das, so in other words, you use your das, you use your mind to understand where Hashem is during those hard days, then your heart will go along with your mind, rather than your heart being greatly affected in a negative way by the hard day and then bringing your mind down into the mud. The process is really supposed to happen the other way. Well, I think we would all like to be working on this very, very strongly, so that when we have a hard day, we remember this, we use our minds to elevate our hearts by finding Hashem. Okay, that's the introduction. Behold, during the weekday, in other words, during the regular times of the year when it's not a Yom Tov, yesh shlita lemehara. There is some component of rulership, in a certain sense, that the bad days have. Hashem created a world that, from our perspective, there are things that are good and things that are bad. And there are times when, during the weekday, when I say weekday, I mean as opposed to Shabbos or Yom Tov, but that these negative forces do hold sway. They do have power. That's why sometimes we feel good, sometimes we feel bad, because we're getting affected by these spiritual forces that are affecting us. And therefore, a person then has to do all of the malachos. So we mentioned before the 39 malachos, the 39 activities that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos or Yom Tov, mostly. But we said during the week, we're supposed to be doing those malachos, those activities. Because as the pasuk says, with the sweat of your brow, you will eat bread. Meaning, spiritually, what's happening here is that because we live in an environment that has a positive, a good component, and a negative, a bad component, we need a vehicle through which we can interact with this environment and extract the good and discard the bad. How do we do that? We do that through our malacha, through our work. We engage in the process of work, not just to earn a livelihood, not just to make bread or grow produce so that we can eat, or take care of animals so we have that resource. That's definitely a component of it. But on a very deep spiritual level, what we're doing is we're interacting with our environment in order so that we should engage in a spiritual activity of finding and identifying the good, extracting that from the bad, and internalizing it. This is a process that humanity is forced to go through because of the fate of Adam Harishon. And you'll say, well, what do? We weren't even around then. Why are we being punished for it? Because Adam made a mistake. Well, the reality is that we're part and parcel of Adam Harishon. We're the Hamshach, we're the continuation of Adam Harishon. So when we talk about Adam Harishon, we're really talking about ourselves. Because we're here and because we're physical human beings, we are part and parcel Adam Harishon in modern times. And as a result of that, we need to engage in elevating ourselves. The way we do that is by interacting with a mixed kind of environment around us, where there's good and where there's bad. And when we choose good, either to do good or to accentuate good, and when we reject bad by not doing bad or not focusing on the bad, when we do this, what we're doing, spiritually speaking, is we're fixing creation and bringing the entire reality closer to God, closer to its intended state as Hashem initially had intended us to be. And this is our participation in the creative process of reality. I hope this is clear. So now, all of this has to happen during the weekday, because during the weekday is when there's bad stuff out there. And the malachos that I'm going to do, the grinding, the plowing, the cutting, the sewing, all of the activities that I'm going to do, again, they serve a dual purpose of, yes, I'm cutting and sewing so I have a garment to wear, but I'm doing more than that. On a spiritual level, I'm connecting with the good and rejecting the bad. And that's my purpose in this world. And that happens during the weekday, because that's when the bad is out there to reject. And the good is mixed in with the bad for me to search for and collect. All the activities that Klal Yisrael does during the weekdays, that's when the evil forces are also holding court, so to speak. They have an influence. All of them have these tikkunim, these fix it, a way to repair something. Uberurim, and a beru is when you select, you choose, you make we would call it today a qualitative decision to do something or not do something, or to select something preferable. That's what we mean by tikkunim uberurim. Kedei lalaben, in order to purify, to whiten, and to select, to choose, and extract, hatov, the good, v'hakdusha, and the holiness, hamalubash sham, that's enclosed there. Because as we described, the goodness, it's almost like looking for a diamond. The diamond is amongst all the pieces of coal, but a person has to dig in the coal where he says, there's nothing in here but coal. Everything's black and dirty and miserable. But by searching in perhaps even sometimes the least likely place, you will find those diamonds. You will find the elokus, the godliness. Because even within the bad days, melubash tov kedusha is enclosed goodness and holiness, canal, as we said above. Rak, except shuhu nistar sham, the kamalavushim, it's hidden there under many, many layers of garments. Okay, therefore it's tzrichen kamiyagios va'avodos va'malachos. That's why we were given all of these efforts and work and malacha. Kodim shemotzi and amarorim ugalin hatov shebehen. That's why we have to do all these activities in order so that we can extract and select them and reveal the good that's within them. I don't know about you, but I never was exposed till I learned the Likutey Maharan and the Likutey Halachos to this kind of a concept. It's so powerful, so beautiful in my opinion, and it adds such a wonderfully spiritual dimension to everything you do during the course of your day, whether it's a quote-unquote religious activity or not. It's a way to bind yourself to holiness as you go about, quite frankly, mundane activities. This refers to all of the work, all of the types of activities that Klal Yisrael does during the weekday. That is time that the bad days have an influence. That all of the work that Klal Yisrael does during the weekday, as we explained, all of it is designed to bring out. It's almost like Hashem left this last part of creation for us to do. It's like if somebody would paint a picture and just leave the last little bit for someone to color in themselves, and then they would get almost like the credit for finishing the whole beautiful picture. Similarly, Hashem created an entire universe, and everything is there for us. And by searching in the bad days for the elokus, we bring it out and we make it shine, and we help to complete the bria, the creation, the way Hashem wanted it to be. We in other words, we actually are able to potentialize the bria. Yalkein b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov, on Shabbos and Yom Tov she'ein b'chinas yimei tov, as opposed to the weekday on Shabbos and Yom Tov, which are good days, v'yein lemei hara shum shlita b'hem, and the bad forces have no influence over them. That's why it's prohibited on those days from doing malacha. So contrary to the weekday, is, let's say, for example, on the other side of the spiritual spectrum is Shabbos. Shabbos is prohibited to do any work. Why? Why is it prohibited to do work on Shabbos? Well, of course, because Hashem said so. But aside from that, spiritually speaking, what we're talking about, why is it prohibited? It's prohibited because work, by definition, is the mechanism of extracting the good from the bad. We don't need to do that on Shabbos because Shabbos is not subject to the bad to begin with. So say, well, what would be the harm in doing the work anyway? So we're going to discuss that. So hold on, let me just slide. So Shita alav chas v'shalom, that it would have a control over it, God forbid. The meira shesham tzrichem beirur, on the bad days that there needs to be selected. Because on Shabbos the goodness comes out all by itself. She'ein sham beirur klal, and it doesn't require any involvement, any intervention on our behalf, any interaction on our behalf in order to bring out the good. Shabbos is inherently good. Nevertheless, Adayin Yesh Hafrish Bein Shabbos v'Yom Tov. Rebbe Noson points out that even still, even though Shabbos and Yom Tov are, let's say, on this very, very close, they're brothers or sisters, compared to their polar opposite, the Yimei Chol, the weekday, but he says there's still a distinction between Shabbos and Yom Tov. What is it? Ki b'Shabbos ein tzrichen shum asiyah v'avoda klal. On Shabbos, you don't need to be doing any work at all, as we explained, because it's inappropriate. Because work is defined as something, again, to identify the good from the bad, and on Shabbos, that's a process that we don't need to undergo. Al-Kain, therefore, kol hamalachas asurim b'Shabbos, all work is prohibited on Shabbos. It's superfluous, and it's prohibited. Ki Shabbos hi b'bechinas l'malam mehazman, because Shabbos is, we say, especially in our Zmiros, Shabbos is me'ein olam haba. It's a taste of the world to come. Olam haba is when all time is over, when Yemos HaMashiach, Olam haba, when history and time have played themselves out. It's not constricted by reality as we know it. Shabbos is a component of that Olam haba. So it's beyond time. It's beyond days. It's beyond formatting into midos. Remember, we referred to the seven lower spheros as midos, as measures. Chesed, gevura, kindness, might, din, malchus. All of these things are different characteristics, midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the different ways that Hashem will interact with our reality. If he wants to show more chesed, that'll filter through the channel of chesed. If he wants to interact with us with a stronger component of din or gevura, that'll obviously come through gevura. So whichever channels, to whatever extent Hashem wants to accentuate a particular midah or characteristic of his, he will cause his light to filter down through that component in greater intensity. But nonetheless, it's still, everything is a midah, everything is a measure. In Olam Haba, we have direct access to HaKadosh Baruch Hu without filters. We're connected, and it's without time. And Shabbos is a reflection of that. On Shabbos, we're closer to Hashem in a certain sense, than we are during the week. It's me'ein olam haba. Bebechinas uberachta mikol hayamim, you blessed it more than all the other days. Vikidashto, and made it holy. Mikol hazamanim, from all times, from all other times of the year, the week, the year, whatever. Shabbos is unique. Shabbos is the highest level of kedusha that we can experience. Shabbos hu mevarach mukudash, and here he's going to say it. Shabbos is blessed and holy, umaromam, and elevated, mikol hayamim v'hazmanim, higher than all the days and all the times. Ki Shabbos hu l'malam v'hazman, because Shabbos is beyond reality as we know it, beyond time. B'azai b'Shabbos niskala or ha'ava shebedas, and it's that, for that reason, that on Shabbos specifically, this higher level of ahava, the ahava that comes from beyond the seven spheros, higher than the seven spheros, that love is what is exhibited and can be felt on Shabbos. Shu'araisa da'atika stima, that's the highest level. Literally what this means is the Torah of the hidden ancient one. Stima means hidden. Atika means ancient. The ancient hidden one. Meaning that expression of Atika Stima is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. The Torah that we have down here on earth is not exactly the same Torah that Hashem operates with in Shemayim. The Torah that we have down here on earth is exactly the Torah that Hashem gave us. But the Torah in Shemayim, where Hashem, Kaviyachol, exists in his reality, is on a higher level than the Torah that we have it. It's for all intents and purposes, from our perspective, it's exactly the same. The only thing that we need to know from this is that when we experience Shabbos, we're tapping into a much higher level of Kedusha. That's the main point that we're trying to get from this part here. Shu b'chinas oneg Shabbos. And this is a component of the pleasure that we get from Shabbos. You know, it's interesting, but especially during the summertime, sometimes it's challenging for someone who, when they keep Shabbos, to go through a long Shabbos day. And a lot of times people, and I'm not trying to be critical of any one particular person, but they struggle with how to get through the day. And if we work on this concept of understanding what Shabbos is, we would actually grow quite quickly, perhaps, in appreciation for every moment that we have of Shabbos, and how we spend our time on Shabbos, and the potential that Shabbos has for us. We would love every moment of it, and we would start to see it go no matter how long the day was. So it's just very interesting perspective to, if somebody is having a hard time who listens to this with, let's say, a long Shabbos day, spend some time thinking about these concepts and integrating these notions in your heart and your mind, and see if your relationship with Shabbos doesn't change and become a little more enhanced, and you'll start experiencing a different kind of experience. You know, it's like when we want to have the experience that we want to be having versus allowing ourselves to connect with the experience that Hashem is providing, then we're in conflict in a certain sense. We want to have a certain kind of experience and Hashem is providing a different one. They're not in sync. When we get on board with Hashem's plan and we understand the value and the benefit and the beauty and kedusha of Shabbos, then we're in sync and we'll want more, and we'll enjoy the Shabbos that much more and connect to it. Baruch Hashem. Then you will be able to rejoice and have oneg and enjoy Shabbos with Hashem. Now it says, as is oneg al Hashem. What does it mean, al Hashem? Al Hashem daika. Specifically on Hashem. It doesn't say im Hashem, that you'll enjoy Shabbos with Hashem. It says al Hashem, on Hashem. What does this mean? As Rebbeinu Zal, may his Neiru Yair means may his candle burn, his light, the light of his candle should continue burning. Like Rebbeinu Zal teaches in another place, meaning, what does it mean that al Hashem? It means that there's a reality in our realm of Hashem. That reality of Hashem in our realm, and of course, again, the words I'm using are only descriptive, so we can understand it on some level. But again, the reality of Hashem in our world is through the lower seven spheros. But that's not the truest reflection of Hashem. That's only the reflection of Hashem that we can consume or relate to in this world. The pure form of Hashem exists beyond Hashem. So when we say that we're celebrating, we're observing Shabbos, and we're connecting to Shabbos, and we're being tis'aneg al Hashem, we're enjoying Shabbos on top of Hashem, what we're actually saying is that we, by connecting with Shabbos and refraining from halacha and observing Shabbos properly in our hearts and in our actions, we are elevating ourselves beyond the seven spheros, the seven lower spheros, so that in a certain sense, we're actually on top of Hashem. We're on top of the Hashem that resides in the seven lower spheros. And we're connecting to the Hashem, not that there's two Hashems, God forbid. But again, Hashem has channeled himself, kiviyachol, so to speak, in a way that we can relate to him here on this world. But he also gave us Shabbos that elevates us to a point where we can relate to Hashem in a outside of this world kind of a way, where we're beyond this world in a certain sense. And to that extent, the notion of Hashem that is relegated to this world, which is the seven lower spheros, Shabbos places us above that. So that's what it means, Al Hashem, because in a certain sense, we're like above the clouds, if I could use that as an example. You know, we're still obviously where we are, but right now we're hovering a little bit higher than we were before. I hope that's not confusing, but I also don't want to lose track of where we're going here with this halacha. So that's what Reb Noson is teaching us about the connections and the kedusha of what Shabbos has to offer. That's why we don't do malacha on Shabbos, because malacha is a process, again, of extracting the good from the bad, which we don't need to engage in on Shabbos, because we're already connected to the highest. Therefore, on Shabbos is prohibited to do all work, because that's a time of total resting from all constructive activity. Yom Tov, hu Yom Tov mamish b'chinas imei tov. And again, before I translate that, I don't know if it came out clearly before, but if we were to do work on Shabbos, I think it was at the top of the page and it didn't come out clearly. If we were to actually do work on Shabbos, what we would be doing is introducing the Yemei Ra, so to speak, into Shabbos, which is something we don't want to be doing. In other words, during the weekday, there's Ra mixed in with Tov, and we're working hard to extract the good. On Shabbos, there's only good. If you conduct yourself as you do during the weekday, that is an invitation for the Ra to come into that day. And that's something we don't want, because the day doesn't have Ra as it does during the weekday. But our actions could actually, God forbid, say, okay, well, we're behaving like it's a weekday, so let the Ra come on in. God forbid, we don't want that. So it's not just that, yes, we were told not to do malacha, so we don't. We're also told not to do malacha because it's not necessary, because there's no Ra to extract the good from. And the flip side is, if God forbid somebody were to actually do malacha on Shabbos, then they're bringing in the Ra of the weekday into Shabbos. So we've got to be very protective of Shabbos, very protective. And we hold a lot of the cards of how we observe Shabbos and the experience that we have and the connections that we make. A lot of this is up to us. The Al-Kain, and therefore, let me go back. Aval Yom Tov, hu Yom Tov mamish, but Yom Tov is a Yom Tov mamish. What does he mean? It's really a Yom Tov? Meaning, we said before that Yomim are a form of limits, of finiteness to things, and it's within that environment that the bad exists in the physical realm. And what Reb Noson pointed out before was Shabbos doesn't have any of that, and Yom Tov also 99% also doesn't have any of that. But as the word Yom Tov belies or hints, it's still a Yom. We don't call Shabbos Yom, we call Shabbos Shabbos, resting. But we refer to Yom Tov as day. Why? Because Yom Tov is kind of like not a weekday in a spiritual sense, but it's also not 100% a Shabbos day either. There's still some halacha that needs to be done in order to extract the good from the little bit of Ra that's exists even in Yom Tov. That's what we're saying. Avo Yom Tov hu Yom Tov mamish. It's really a yom. It's really a day. Bechinas Yimei Tov. Like we referred to before, we have good days and bad days. So now that we know that Yom Tov is not, it's not 100% like Shabbos. Mostly it is like Shabbos, not 100%. Yalkein, therefore, even though the bad does not have influence during Yom Tov or Yom Tov, Kihem Yemei Tov, because they are days of good, right? They're not Yemei Ra, God forbid. They're Yemei Tov, but they're Yomim nonetheless. In other words, it's still something that we need to be engaged in with regard to the Yom Tov. Yalkein Asurim HaMalachos B'Yom Tov. Because it's a good day, most malachos are prohibited. I added the word most. He says that malachos, creative activities, as defined by the 39 types of activities and all of their sub-activities, they're prohibited on Yom Tov. Ki ein bearer oz kanal, because you don't need to do any kind of selecting on Yom Tov. Afal pikein, but nevertheless, adayin shichaneza asiyas uvdos b'Yom Tov. You still need to do some activities and some actions and activities on Yom Tov. Some work needs to be done. That is, that a person needs to unite, to tie, to bind the days and the midos, the measures. Again, these terms should be familiar by now with the background of what we've discussed, what yamim are and midos are, and the spheros and the mitzvos and everything that we've discussed about what a midah is. The bechinas or ha'ava shabadas. So in other words, we still need to do some work, so to speak, quote unquote, on Yom Tov, because it's not 100% like Shabbos. It is, again, it's a good day. There's not just the Yemei Ra can do whatever they want. However, a Yom Tov is exactly that. It's a Yom. So even though it's good, it's still limited to some extent. And we have to be participatory in completing the process of drawing down this higher level ahava. The ahava that comes from the highest realm of das, which is again beyond the 7 spheros of this world. We need to be engaged in that process of drawing that down and connecting to it. Shulamalim and Azman, that ahava shabadas is beyond time. So on Yom Tov, we don't get as much rest as we do on Shabbos. Ki b'Yom Tov ein niskala rak b'chinas Yemei Tov, because on a Yom Tov, there is not revealed except the Yemei Tov. In other words, the concepts, the spirituality, the ruchnius that accompanies that Yom Tov, that, yes, is there. And we don't have the Yemei Ra from the weekday. Absolutely not. But the job of drawing down the highest level of ahava is not complete, because it's still, after all, a yom, a day. Not like Shabbos, which is all done for us. We still need to do activities in order to connect ourselves to the to connect the physical realm to the highest level of ahava, the ahava shabadas. Kedei litom tam or ahava, in order that we should be able to taste the light of love, the ahava shabadas, the taste, the light of the ahava that comes from das. Even within those days. So again, we don't have to wait for Olam Haba to enjoy the experience of true ahava shabadas. We can experience it on Shabbos. And we don't have to wait for Shabbos to experience the ahava shabadas either. We can experience it even on a Yom Tov by doing some malachos that will extract that good even on the Yom Tov. And therefore, yesh malachos shetzrichim asos b'Yom Tov. There are certain malachos that we do need to do. Not that they're just permitted to be done, but actually, in a certain sense, we need to do them on Yom Tov. Vehem malachas ochel nefesh, and these are the malachos that are associated with eating, with food. Shitira Torah b'Yom Tov, that the Torah permitted one to perform on Yom Tov. And we paskin like Beis Hillel that who holds that once the Torah permitted it for ochel nefesh, once the Torah permitted, for example, using a fire for the preparation of food, at least taking the fire one thing from the other, not striking a match from nothing, but at least utilizing the fire and cooking, we can use that fire for other things as well, such as heating the room or lighting our Shabbos licht. If it's Yom Tov and then right away the very next day is Friday night. So the point being that these type of activities of ochel nefesh are necessary to be done on Yom Tov. Ki tzadik. Now, why specifically ochel nefesh? Why was that the criteria for choosing which malachos were permissible on Shabbos? How do we relate? On Yom Tov. How do we relate to the fact that Hashem said on Yom Tov you can't do any malacha except for those that are related to food, and that's going to be the vehicle through which you can identify the good in Yom Tov and elevate yourself in the day and elevate yourself and draw down that Abba Shabbadas. Well, why food? Why ochel nefesh? So now Rebbe Noson is going to explain. Ki tzadik ochel l'sova nafsho. Because a tzaddik eats to satisfy his soul. What does that mean? It means that a tzaddik eats the right amount to sustain himself. He eats in the appropriate way to be healthy and to sustain himself, but he does not eat to excess. He doesn't eat things that are not kosher. He doesn't eat things that are prohibited, like chametz on Pesach, etc., etc. A tzaddik uses his das even when he's engaged in eating. The eating of a tzaddik is very, very precious to Hashem. And his eating, and the eating that he does in order to sustain his life, they are. It's the kind of eating that draws its sustenance from the highest sparks of kedusha. As Rebbe Nachman writes, may his candle burn, in another place, nimtza, that a tzaddik derives pleasure from his eating. So again, he's not eating a lot. He's not eating to excess. He's not eating the wrong kinds of food. No, none of that. He eats appropriately at all times, and that brings him the greatest pleasure of all. That brings him the greatest connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu. So he enjoys his eating from a spiritual perspective because he's eating to feed his soul more than his stomach. And he's drawing a connection between himself and this ahava shabadas, she bechinas oros hatzachtzachos shem lamala mehayamim la'amidas kiyadua, and he is connecting himself to the highest sparks of kedusha, which are beyond the yamim, beyond the spheros and the midos. Because on a tzaddik it says, he's anagal Hashem, he's rejoicing on Hashem, meaning he's elevating himself through his eating, beyond his experience interfacing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world to interfacing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a world that exists beyond our reality. She's zocha lebechinas oneg Shabbos, that a person can be zocha to experience when he keeps Shabbos, the delight of Shabbos. So we eat. We're human beings. We need to eat. But we need to know that the eating process is a very spiritual activity. And to the extent that a person can grow in this area and connect with his food where he's not looking to eat inappropriately, either the wrong things or at the wrong time or in the wrong way or at the wrong amount, etc., etc. Again, each one according to his abilities. Then he gives himself access to a higher level of Kedusha. Because a tzaddik knows how to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all things physical. We, in Yiddishkeit, understand that the way to godliness is not asceticism. The way to godliness is taking the physical realm and utilizing it properly. Even the languages of the Goyim, what he means by that is, even when we're interfacing with the non-Jewish world around us, or in places, far-flung places where they may not recognize that there's a Hashem, etc., even in those places, we can connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we can recognize that there's a God, and we can connect to him. And through this, a person merits this connection to the Ava Shabbadas. Okay, we're going to stop there for tonight, and God willing, we'll be able to finish the rest of the halacha on our last session this coming Tuesday night next week, God willing. So thank you all for joining me again. I hope that the lesson came out clearly and in a tangible way that you can walk away and think about it and relate to it and say, how am I thinking of Shabbos? How am I thinking of Yom Tov? How am I thinking of eating? These are very practical things that we can relate to and create a stronger relationship with, and God willing, the goal is to be able to enhance that relationship and use those activities and those times like Shabbos and Yom Tov to gain a better connection and understanding and relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So thank you very much for joining me again. Have a good night and the rest, and have a good rest of the week. All the best. Thank you, David and family. I hope that you will join us again next week, and I hope that the Monday will be full of meaning. Yes, that's the goal. That's the goal that we're all striving for. Thank you very much. Good night, Pamela. Good night, Yaya. Good night, Teresa. Good to see you again. Bye-bye, everybody.